we've seen that gentrification time and time again. I don't want to leave the issue of youth solutions so quickly just yet, but I'm really glad that you've introduced a fully connected picture that shows from the family environment and the disruptions that can happen that will all lead to that kind of youth displacement, because we don't really ask the questions and investigate. And as you've made it plain, if we're looking at results-based funding, where was this criteria actually drawn up? What consultation was had with the beneficiaries of that funding? Where was the representation from the African Caribbean community? And we know that it doesn't really take place. We're outside of those rooms when those decisions are made. And I know that we've both been down to the mayor's office and consulted how many times, but how many of those recommendations were taken up by Khan's mayor's office, who's been in since May 2016. So when we're connecting the dots and we're talking about the public health approach, I'm really glad that you've brought housing into the picture, the school exclusions into the picture, which just lead children and young people to have far too much time on their hands. And then we start to look at empowering those organizations, as I said, taking positive steps, Black Child Agenda, because then when they take up the advocacy, we know that the children are more than just numbers. They are actually being represented within the educational institutions and their rights are being protected. So give us, because I've heard you speak about it before, your understanding of the public health approach and the joined up interconnectivity of agencies that are creating wraparound care for young people. And that goes from the school advocacy through rites of passage, supplementary schools, child parent intervention, as you understand, and all of those organizations in between.
If we look at where the model originally came from, first of all, in Glasgow, I remember when they were having consultations before they brought it into London, because I was sitting on the panels when they were discussing it. And one of the missing components out of that was the grassroots organizations. It was statutory-led, local authority-led. So when you've got something being led by the local authority, the community that are grassroots are then being directed to the safer neighborhood funds to be funded. So the normal money that comes down from the Home Office or the Mayor's Office to deliver that piece of work was going out to the local authorities. So as I said, the local authority were then integrating the community groups into the council, so they didn't have to be accountable to the community anymore. So once you bring a local community group into the local authority, you then dictate to them how the service is delivered. So the other services and organizations that refuse to be manipulated and brought inside the local authority, they don't get any funding. So once you don't get any funding and you start making noise, after a while, they make it look as if you're just an angry community person because all you want is money. Why can't you do it for the love? And all of that sort of stuff they start saying. So it's that whole divide and conquer business going on where some people get let in the house, others don't. And the ones that get let in the house, they're not going to speak out against what is actually happening to them as well inside, not knowing that they will only be funded for as long as it needs for them to keep quiet.
Absolutely.
The Safer Neighbourhood Fund, you could apply for, I think it was up to £5,000. Yeah. So if we're thinking about all the grassroots organizations within the community applying for this small chunk of money, so the money that they would have given to one organization before has now been chopped up into 10 or 15 sections to give out to 10 or 15 organizations. Meanwhile, the millions go straight into the local authority and they continue to do work that shows no outcomes.
Absolutely.
The reason I link the housing into the youth crime and everything else is this. It's an integral part of it. Because if a young person is even threatened with being stabbed, the option might be to move that family. Where do we move that family? You've got housing associations within the borough that have just got houses within a small cluster. So unless you could move or get a mutual exchange with someone else, that family will only be moving 2 roads up the road. How have you kept them safe if they're only 2 roads away from the area of risk? So then for the family to move wider out to be protected, their tenancy is then being tampered with, because you're now moving from a assured tenancy, lifetime tenancy, to probably an assured shorthold, meaning temporary tenancy, or you're given a license or given a deposit to go into private accommodation, which is now you've now got an uncertain future. A lot of the families are being told, well, if your children are really at risk, you will take whatever we give you. So if you, your son, and your 3 children have to live in a 1-room bedsit for however long a string is, that's where you're going. So when we're looking at that, a lot of families are looking and saying, wait a minute, I'd rather stay where I am. So when we're seeing the violence going round as a cycle, is because a lot of the families are not getting the housing support they need to move, or they're being offered places such as Sheffield, which might not be culturally matched for that family all to go up there, because they're now piloting into an area where they're the only people going to look like them in that area.
Yep.
There's not even any risk assessment being done on the street that they're going to or the property that they're being moved into. So they're saying, wait a minute, why would I move out of one dangerous place to go somewhere else where no one's risk assessing the place, and then I end up in another gang area, and once I move there, there's no support services for me there. So there's a lot of stuff that go into this, and every single thing is connected. So even though they might look like they're not connected, it's all interlinked.